Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Wellness Before Illness. I am your host Dr. Anandu Vijay. Today we are diving into a topic that doesn't get nearly as much primetime news coverage as it should, despite affecting 500,000 people globally every single year. We are talking about oral and pharyngeal cancer, which include cancers of lip, oral cavity, and oropharynx. When you group these together, they actually make up the sixth most common cancer in the world. Think about that for a second. In the grand scheme of global health, this is a massive burden. But what makes it truly fascinating and critical from a public health perspective is just how wildly its footprint changes depending on where you look on a map. Let's break down the data. If you look at the global data of oral cancer, it isn't distributed evenly. It shows specific countries experiencing disproportionately high incidence and mortality, that is, increased amount of death due to cancer. We see distinct hotspot of oral cancer, regions like South Asia, particularly India, parts of Southeast Asia, Brazil, and pockets of Central Europe and Africa stand out starkly on the global stage. Why the geographic variation? It boils down to lifestyle and cultural habits. In many high incidence areas, the widespread use of tobacco, both smoked and smokeless forms like betel quid or pan chewing, along with heavy alcohol consumption, drives these numbers through the roof. Historically, males have borne a significantly higher burden of oral cavity cancers. For instance, the male map shows high incidence in North America, South America, Europe, and in Asia, hitting the highest risk tiers, while the female mass generally shows lower incidence globally. Specific regions like India still flash a bright warning red scenes. Now let's zoom in one of the major high risk zones, that is India. If we look closely at the data, we get a vivid picture of how age and time play into this epidemic. The graph illustrates the age-specific incidence rates per lakh people across regional registries like Chennai and Mumbai. What is striking here is the curve. For the first few decades of life, from childhood up to around the age of 30, the incidence is practically flat or nearly zero. But once you cross the 35 to 40 age threshold, the curve takes off like a rocket, peaking heavily in the 60 to 74 age brackets. And again in the male line soar significantly higher than the female line, highlighting that demographic disparity. But here is the most alarming trend. This data tracks total cancer prevalence and incidence cases over time. From 2004 leading into projected figures up to 2020, the bars only go one way, that is upwards. Total cases have steadily climbed, expanding the pool of patients needing urgent specialized oncological care. More yet, global reviews are noting the rising trend in younger population having oral cancer. This means we can no longer just look at this as a old person's disease. Oral and oropharyngeal cancers represent a shifting and growing global threat. But because it is so deeply tied to lifestyle factors and regional habits, it means we have power to fight back. With 500,000 cases globally, the data screams for urgent public health measures. Early detection saves lives, changing a scary statistic into a story of recovery. That's all from today's